Over the weekend, of course, we did have the revelation of tens of thousands of emails and other forms of correspondence released by WikiLeaks having to do with some of the specific ways that the DNC throughout the primary was putting pressure on the system to achieve a certain outcome. And unlike the previous sets of leaks, this one went all the way up to Debbie Wasserman Schultz, as of course we've been talking about. So there have been consequences, specifically for Debbie Wasserman Schultz. She was not forced to step down. They wanted to make very clear, the Hillary Clinton campaign, that she wasn't forced. She just chose to, and then was, of course, immediately lifted up to honorary chairwoman position, which I assume means that later on she'll become the honorary chair of the DNC, since that seems to be a revolving door of honor. But anyway, that happened. And several extremely prominent Democrats spoke out immediately afterward in support of her, like Hillary Clinton, saying, "I look forward to campaigning with Debbie in Florida and helping her in her re-election bid, because as president, I will need fighters like Debbie in Congress who are ready on day one to get to work for the American people." But it wasn't just Hillary Clinton. Barack Obama also speaking out for her. "For the last 8 years, Chairwoman Debbie Wasserman Schultz has had my back. This afternoon, I called her to let her know that I'm grateful. Her leadership of the DNC has meant that we had someone who brought Democrats together, not just for my re-election campaign, but for accomplishing the shared goals we've had for our country." And I can think of a few of those shared goals. But beyond just losing her position as the head of the DNC, it's also had some immediate consequences for her here at the convention. So we found out that while she was originally going to continue to speak at the convention, even though she'd be stepping down, including gaveling in, which would have been a recipe for booing, she is now not speaking. She did speak, however, at a meeting with Florida delegates, and we want to show you a video where you see the sort of reception she got at that speech.
All right, everybody now, settle down. Everybody settle down, please.
Okay. All right, we have a big program. We have a big program today. Let's hear. Let's be respectful. Please be quiet so Debbie can speak. It's okay. Everybody, let's hear from our speakers. We have other speakers as well.
Thank you all so much.
You had people yelling emails, no, thanks for the help, Debbie. Others repeatedly shouting, and I think you like this one, shame.
Ding, 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 ding.
So no walk of shame, but there was a sit of shame.
Yeah. Seriously, on Twitter, our viewers were suggesting that the Bernie Sanders supporters bring bells. Shame.
I love that.
Ding, 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 ding,
And just
shame.
dress like the nun, or the septum, sorry.
I don't think you want to be that character, though. So
Not right about now, no.
Yeah.
But in response, Debbie Wasserman Schultz said, "You will see me every day between now and November 8th on the campaign trail, and we will lock arms, and we will not stand down." So she's stepping down, but she is not standing down.
So here's the thing. We all get really upset about Debbie Wasserman Schultz. A lot of people do. A lot of people not hold it. If you leave this convention and this bubble and you walk onto the streets of Philadelphia, which, by the way, is a great name for a song to be a soundtrack to a movie. If you do that and you go up to people and you ask them who Debbie Wasserman Schultz is, any voter, nobody will have a clue who Debbie Wasserman Schultz is.
That's a very fair point.
You know,
that's right.
And I don't. So in the whole scheme of the election and the voters and the people that they're trying to get to come out to vote in November, who the Democrats are trying to really mobilize, Debbie Wasserman Schultz doesn't matter. In this building, it's a big thing.
But the only counter argument I'll make to that, Michael, is that it is a name that is now infamous among Sanders supporters. And those Sanders supporters do have a web throughout the country of people that do vote regularly, that are hardcore voters.
Right. I'm not saying nobody understands who she is, but the Democrats, the only way they're going to win is to get out their base. And their base, in some respects, is the Sanders voter. They're not going to get as many of them as they would like. But the Clintons want to get out voters who are also not going to care about this. So it's not to them. And so when you hear the president, the vice president, Secretary Clinton talking about this stuff, it's not that big a deal to them.
I don't know. I doubt once they're gone, I doubt a lot of people are really spending a lot of time thinking about the former heads of the party committees. But when I think back to what Howard Dean represented, it was an unfortunately too short focus, but a focus on getting the Democrats elected all over the country. Like, that's what he was there for, was to change the way elections are run for the Democrats. And now, and maybe it's just Sanders supporters, but she will represent to me the person who was there to get one person elected. She's placed there, and she ran the DNC to get Hillary Clinton elected.
Yeah, look,
and that is the exact opposite of what we need, I think.
Aside from those emails, kind of validating what people had suspected during the primaries, I think what it does, and I don't think there's enough attention to this, angle, is it undermines our democratic process. When you have the DNC pushing for one candidate and in essence manipulating things by deciding to, have the debates on the weekends to kind of bury them and drown out Bernie Sanders' message, you're toying with the democratic system and a democratic process.
Yeah.
And so, for people who aren't, that concerned with Bernie Sanders, I think they're concerned with what's happening with democracy and how a political party is kind of manipulating things.
Yeah. So we have another angle on this I want to get to. Right before we intro this, we've got a monitor with Google Trends, and they're putting up different data and visualizations about what people are searching for. And under top searches for Michelle Obama, one of them was, is plagiarism illegal?
Is what? Is plagiarism what?
Is plagiarism illegal? Right. Thankfully, Melania, no, you can do it.
Okay, so on Debbie Wasserman Schultz, look, I want to make a couple of things clear. First of all, a lot of Democrats will say, look, and when I say Democrats, I mean the party people. They'll say, look, the emails don't show the DNC saying, okay, let's make sure Bernie Sanders loses and Hillary Clinton wins from day one. What they show is an assumption. Like, Hillary's going to be the nominee. And so let's see if we can get a narrative going out there against Bernie Sanders so that he'll go away already. Let's question his faith so that he'll lose in Kentucky and West Virginia. That's really bad. But they would defend it as like, no, but guys, we weren't rigging it in the beginning against Sanders. He was never going to win. And in fact, in one of the emails, Debbie Wasserman Schultz says he's never going to win. And you see, they're missing what the real problem is. The real problem is you assumed from day one that Hillary Clinton was your nominee and that Bernie Sanders, and by the way, no one else had any chance. That's the problem.
Yeah.
You think that it's no big deal, but that's what people are pissed about. And of course, the best example of that is the fact that they laundered the money for the Hillary Clinton Victory Fund through the DNC and through the states. And then it was later proven. By the way, we were one of the very first news organizations talking about that. Truth had a great piece about it, Truth Out did. And then I did a giant piece about it. And then it started to gain momentum. And at the beginning, of course, skepticism. Later, we were proven almost 100% right, because at the end, they showed that only 1% of the money went to the actual Democratic state parties, okay?
Oh, it's
so
like Sarah
99% was laundered back to Hillary Clinton. It was
Yeah.
Hillary Clinton donors. They gave to the DNC, they gave to the state parties, and they funneled that money back to Hillary Clinton. That was an agreement that was done before any of this began. Before Bernie Sanders got any momentum, but before they even know whether Joe Biden was coming in, Al Gore was coming in, Elizabeth Warren was coming in, they assumed from day one that Hillary Clinton was going to be the nominee and they were going to do anything they could to get her elected. They would say, yeah, we're trying to get the Democrat elected. Because in their mind, Hillary Clinton is the only Democrat who could have been president.
She's the only one that there is.
But that's
Would have been interesting if Biden got in to see what their demeanor would have been in that situation.
Because they would have viewed him as a legitimate candidate, and they would have been like, oh, wait, maybe we shouldn't have done the money laundering for Hillary Clinton. Should we money launder for Joe Biden?
Right.
That would have been the conversation. But they never took Sanders seriously because they thought he's not our candidate. That's the heart of the problem.
Well, hell, at least they talked about Bernie Sanders. Martin O'Malley couldn't get the DNC to discriminate against him. But the sad thing from my point of view is that they approached the primary as an unfortunate obstacle that they had to do before Hillary could be the nominee, rather than as an opportunity to discover who the strongest, best Democrat is. And they could have, if Bernie had won, the polls can change. Maybe he'd end up losing to Trump. But he could have come in on a wave of support, bringing in independents, maybe having Elizabeth Warren as his VP. You could have had him fundamentally change money in politics, shift our economy, maybe transfer after 8 years the presidency over to Elizabeth Warren. It could have been a monumental, historic shift in the presidency on the back of an extremely progressive Democrat. And now we have a coin flip of a chance to possibly win on the back of Hillary Clinton, almost certainly a contentious election in 4 years. It's just sad the history that we'll never experience now.
And so let me end on this note then, because what we're missing here, and I've been to Washington, I've talked to a lot of folks, that, both in media and in politics, is that it's not for them, it's not, well, has a better chance of winning, Bernie Sanders or Hillary Clinton? I grant you that they never thought that Bernie Sanders had a better chance of winning. That is in addition to their other thought that I'm about to tell you. They're like, dismiss it out of hand. Like it's not even, no reasonable Washington person would ever think that. Okay, that was from day one as well. But really the core of it is something you never see. A lot of those people make money under this system. So it is deeply ingrained in them that is a fact of life. Well, look, I mean, one day we're going to be lobbyists, and my friend Bob, he's a lobbyist. He's not a bad guy, and it's true. Debbie Wasserman Schultz is not a bad person. She doesn't go home and it's like, how shall I undermine democracy, right? No, she's doing what she thinks is perfectly normal.
You don't know for sure. There's more emails coming.
So,
well, that is true. I mean, by the way, that's the scariest part, is that there are more emails coming. They can come at the beginning of November. They can come at the middle of October. We don't know what they have.
So, but guys, understand that this is how they make a living. And so this is a circle, and it goes around and around and around, and everybody's part of that money circle. And so when you challenge it and you say, hey, let's get rid of it so that none of your friends or you can ever be a lobbyist or work for any corporation and pay for your kids' tuition at private school that you're going to send them to, they think that is a fate worse than a Republican winning.